No Josh Allen this preseason. What are the Bills going to do at corner? And key things to pay attention to in the preseason finale. We're breaking all that down today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I am your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. We got a lot to cover. The Bills have their preseason finale Saturday night against the Buccaneers, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And Sean McDermott has shared that Josh Allen will not play, which means he won't play at all this preseason. Let's start there. Is it the right decision? Well, Josh Allen has played in some capacity every preseason so far in his career until this year. What I can tell you about that is that it has not led to consistent week one results. Josh Allen playing in the preseason hasn't meant that he's going to play well in week one, and it's not meant that he's going to play poorly in week one. Let's go through a little bit of a journey here because the results have been very inconsistent. Now, I think you toss aside the rookie season. So 6 week one starts, not including his rookie season to this point. I think he was good 3 times. I think he was bad 3 times. Good against the Rams in 2022, good against the Jets in 2020, and good against the Cardinals last year. Now, it took a little bit of time to settle in, but overall, good performance. Then he's had some real stinkers. The Jets in 2023, we all remember that game, Monday Night Football. How about that Steelers opener? Clunker. Jets in 2019. 3 good, 3 bad. Josh Allen's played in the preseason in some capacity every year until now. So I don't know how well he's going to play against the Ravens. I can tell you that Josh Allen participating in the preseason has not led to consistent week one results. Now, he's also entering his 8th season as the reigning NFL MVP, and keep in mind all the continuity that exists offensively. That's one of the big storylines. Pretty much the whole thing's back. You add Josh Palmer, maybe some depth receivers, but everything else is the same. The coaching, the players around him. So you could see why it's a logical choice for this to be the decision that Sean McDermott made. Now, ultimately, it's about how does he perform week one against Baltimore. That's what's going to matter. And if he plays poorly, I think people are going to go back and say, well, he probably needed to play in the preseason, to which I can tell you he's played in the preseason in the past, and it's not always led to a good performance in week one. But that's the decision that Sean McDermott has made. The good news is Josh Allen won't be getting injured on Saturday night. I can promise you that during the game. Won't happen because he won't play. So we have that piece of news. Then the other big piece of news is Tre'Davious White has suffered some type of injury. So let's tell you what we know. Sal Capaccio on X reports this. Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White hopped off the field. This is on Thursday on one leg and was immediately looked at by trainers. He stood by the outside wall with them for several minutes before walking slowly on his own with a trainer nearby into the locker room area. White later walked back down the tunnel towards the field where he sat in a cart and was driven out. Joe Buechele added this on X. He said, some context with cornerback Tre'Davious White's injury and being carted. It is a very long walk back to the field house locker room from the stadium and up quite an incline of the ramp into the tunnel. We'll know more soon, but that could be a reason for the cart. That's what we know. That's what we know. And obviously you can't help but kind of take your mind to dark places. And with Maxwell Harrison sidelined right now with the LCL sprain, and now whatever this is with Tre'Davious White, you are getting down the ladder here for your potential week 1 starter against Baltimore. Could the Bills make an outside addition? I think we'll need to know what the severity of Trey White's injury is, but you probably start thinking about calling Rasul Douglas. Maybe it's worth calling Stephon Gilmore, depending on severity here. If not, you're looking at one of Dane Jackson, Jamarcus Ingram, or Dorian Strong as the starter across from Christian Benford in week 1. Now, Dane Jackson, since 2020, has started 28 games for the Bills. I would guess it would be him, and I know that's not news that anyone wants to hear. But you cannot deny that he has started a lot of games for the Bills. And they've won a lot of games with Dane Jackson as a starting cornerback. It's not ideal, but you're talking about down to your third option. Jamarcus Ingram could be him. Rostered player last year. Got some playing time. Is he a player they feel more comfortable than Dane Jackson? And then Dorian Strong is a rookie. I think that's unlikely. As a 6th-round rookie, to be the starter over the guy who started 28 games for your defense or the guy that was rostered last year, that would be surprising. It would be a good sign for Dorian Strong, for sure, but that would surprise me if it was him. So I think you have outside addition, Dane Jackson or Jamarcus Ingram. Now, maybe Tre'Davious White going to be okay. A lot of different players that went to locker rooms on carts this preseason. Wasn't really anything to be concerned about, including Tyrell Shavers. So it's concerning. How concerned we should be remains to be seen. Hopefully he's good. Hopefully he's ready to go, and that Trey White has the redemption year that we're all hoping he has. But obviously it creates a pretty big concern about that spot opposite of Christian Benford. And I think the Bills probably know between Jackson, Ingram, and Strong which one it would be. And because of that, I do wonder how they navigate the preseason game. Do you want that guy to get reps, or do you want to protect them? I think that's an interesting conversation. And so if one of them doesn't play on Saturday night, there's a chance that it doesn't mean that they're not going to make the team. It could mean that they're going to start. And when you're down to your third option, you probably want to not get down to your fourth option, if that makes sense. So curious to see how Sean McDermott and his staff handle that situation. All right, coming up next, I want to get more into the storylines for the Bills against the Bucs. Key things that I think are on the line. We'll focus on the defense, special teams, and then offense. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether it's your first time or a veteran in your millionth league. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and I love how smooth the draft day experience is. It's easy to set up a league. The mobile app is awesome, and the Smack Talk hits just different in those message boards. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, folks, let's get into these key storylines for the Bills against the Bucs preseason finale. I think the Bills will probably be very cautious with starters, so you'll see a lot of young players, a lot of depth guys. But my eyes will certainly be focused on this young defensive line. And obviously there's players that I'm interested in there, but as it relates to the implications of how roles will be defined early in the season, my mind goes here. Number one, who gets the snaps at defensive end between Landon Jackson and Javon Solomon? Now, they're both going to play, but I mean during the regular season. You have Michael Hoyt on the shelf for 6 weeks. You've got Rousseau, Bosa, Epinesa. Someone else is going to dress and play. Is it Landon Jackson or Javon Solomon? Both have been getting a lot of opportunity on special teams so far this preseason, so that'll be a big part of their roles. But from scrimmage, defensively, one of them, I think, will probably play 10 to 20% of snaps. Who's it going to be? Landon Jackson is the more balanced player as a run defender and a pass rusher. Solomon probably has a little bit of an edge as a pass rusher, but struggles against the run. He is the guy with a year of experience. Landon Jackson, I thought, showed notable growth from his first preseason game to his second preseason game. Does he continue that trajectory? Did things continue to slow down for him a bit? I think that's what's on the line for those players. I think they're both safe. I think they'll both make the team, I think. But someone's going to dress and be the fourth defensive end against Baltimore and throughout the first 6 weeks of the season. Who's it going to be? That's what I'm focusing in at defensive end. At defensive tackle, where does Dwayne Carter slot? Of course, I'm excited to see TJ Sanders and Deion Walker. Those guys are ahead of Dwayne Carter. So is it Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Deion Walker, TJ Sanders? Is that your four-man rotation? Or does Dwayne Carter have a spot? Does Dwayne Carter have a spot on the roster? It's hard to say that he's earned that, but as a third-round pick entering his second season, there's going to be a leash there. What does he show? Hopefully a lot more than he has the first two preseason games. I don't have a lot of confidence in him taking snaps, especially against Baltimore. Can that change with a good performance on Saturday night? Where does he slot? And in a nose tackle role, I'm not convinced that Zion Logue's not a better option than Dwayne Carter. We'll see how that plays out. Linebacker is very fascinating. I think the Bills will keep 5 or 6 linebackers. 4 of those, I think, are pretty set with Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, and Joe Andreessen. I think Shaq Thompson has a good shot to be linebacker 5. I think they're going to value, his leadership. They're going to value his versatility, his time in the system. I know he's missed time with a hamstring, but when he's been available, he looks good. There's probably a level of comfort there. So I think those could be your 5. The Bills have kept 6. And for that 6th role, it's Jimmy Charlo versus Keontae Jenkins, who hasn't practiced this week with an ankle, versus Edifwan Ulofoshio, who Jenkins was ahead of, when Keontae Jenkins was healthy. So if they go 6 linebackers and Jimmy Charlo comes out and does what he's been doing so far this preseason, impact special teams plays and flashing, from scrimmage on defense, he's certainly building the best case. Now, he's the least experienced player that the Bills have at the position, but I think that speaks to how impressive it is that he's done what he's been able to do without the time that these other guys have had. He's making one heck of a case. So here's his last chance. And I like what he's done with his first couple chances. I think that's the name to watch here. Because I think the Bills could just say, yeah, we're just going to roster 5. But Jimmy Charlo, I think, is the guy that can force the issue and be the 6th player. And you might really like what you get from him as a special teams player and a developing depth player. We know that Cole Bishop is going to play. Sean McDermott said that. I don't think that's an indicator that he's not going to be the starter next to Taylor Rapp. I think the Bills are going to see that through. But it's valuable game reps for him. He needs it, right? I think the story on Cole Bishop is the skill set or the ability is pretty clear. It's not like he's an efficient player in terms of size, athleticism. It's, can he play faster? Can the game slow down for him? Can he make an impact? Can he be consistent? Playing will help achieve that. And so I'm sure he'll play 10 to 20 snaps. That'd be my guess. But it would be nice for him to have some positive moments within that so we can feel a little bit differently than we do about him going into the season as a starter next to Taylor Rapp. Let's talk special teams real quick. I think there's some storylines. The Bills released Caden Davis, who had been the kicker that's kind of kept the seat warm while Tyler Bass has worked back from the pelvis injury. Well, he's worked back from the pelvis injury. The plan was for him to kick Saturday night against the Bucs. That's on schedule. In fact, he's the only kicker the Bills have, outside of course, Ray Davis. How could I forget? But I want to see Tyler Bass look good, right? Like, make some field goals, make your extra points, handle your kickoff duties. Because it's not much time left before you're kicking and it counts. And we know that he hasn't had the normal workload he would in the preseason. So hopefully he can find his stroke and be the kicker the Bills need him to be this year. And I think step one is getting through this game and handling all the duties the way you're supposed to. I'm also really interested in the punt return stuff. You know, Brandon Codrington was the only guy that handled punt returns last week. He only had 2, but it was him. If it was legitimate competition, and Codrington was your punt returner all last year, wouldn't you want to get a look at some other guys? Maybe this is decided. Maybe it's Brandon Codrington. And maybe the reality is that it's Khalil Shakir. You know, maybe that's really what it's going to be. But I would assume if no other player besides Brandon Codrington gets punt return reps, then no other player is in competition with Brandon Codrington. And the only player in the mystery box could be Khalil Shakir. So where do those punt return opportunities go will inform us about what that direction is going to be. All right, we got stuff to break down on the offensive side of the football, which we'll do here on the other side of it. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything. Cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what will actually work for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference. You get real, personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. Having a trusted professional to talk things through with can help cut through the noise and keep you focused on what matters most. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people. It's easy to fit it into your schedule. Just click connect, and you can even switch therapists anytime if you need to. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, folks, welcome back. Talk about some of the key stuff on the offensive side of the football. Pay attention to preseason finale. I'm excited for this preseason to be over. I'm ready for the regular season. I'm ready to stop worrying about preseason injuries, get into regular season mode, get ready for this Ravens game. But we got to get through this one on Saturday night first. I think the big thing for the Bills offensively is wide receiver. Sean McDermott came out and said this week, hey, we know who 1, 2, and 3 are, which is Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, and Josh Palmer. It's 4, 5, 4, 5, and 6. Who are those players? I suspect one of those players is Curtis Samuel. Whatever you think of Curtis Samuel, that's fine. But I think the Bills have a level of comfort in him, even if he hasn't really played much this preseason. They've known him for a while. He's kind of a specific type player. It's a specific type role. That's unlike really anything else that the Bills have. He was clutch down the stretch last year, had some big moments. So I'm not expecting a high volume piece of the offense, but a piece. So I think he's probably in that mix for 4 or 5. I think Tyrell Shavers has certainly done all he can. I'm not sure what else he can put on film that's going to get him on this roster. I think he's certainly been the receiver that's done the most this offseason to earn a spot. And I think he's earned it. The guy I'm curious about is Elijah Moore. Is there a spot for him? From a skill set perspective, certainly. But is he fitting in the way that the Bills would like him to? If not him, then who? Would the Bills just keep 5? Palmer, Shakir, Coleman, Samuel Shavers, that's it. I think that's possible. If there is a 6th guy, it could be him. Now there's some buzz for KJ Hamler as well. So we'll see how that sorts itself out. Maybe it is Elijah Moore versus KJ Hamler for a job. Maybe Laviska Shenault has a little bit of opportunity in this battle. But we're getting down to the wire here, and it feels a little unsettled. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. Probably mostly Elijah Moore versus Laviska Shenault versus KJ Hamler. Offensive line-wise, the time missed for Cedric Van Pran-Granger has me thinking he's going to start the year on the PUP list. And that's a player I thought would be rostered, which I think opens the door for one of Kendrick Green or Dan Feeney to make this initial 53-man roster. Both are experienced NFL players, started a lot of games, both can play center and guard. Kendrick Green's been around a lot more this offseason. Feeney was signed a couple weeks ago. So I think that's a legit thing. Like, one of those two is going to make this team. And they both have had chances to play center. And I think that's what's really important here. Now, I think Alec Anderson, I like where he's trending, and he'll probably be the first in at guard or center. But I still think there's a spot for one of these two guys because Cedric Van Pran-Granger, I don't think he's going to be ready to go to start the year. And then is Tylen Grable going to be able to play? He's been working through concussion protocol. Is he cleared, and will he play? It'd be helpful because right now it's been Ryan Vandemark and Chase Lunt and Travis Clayton at tackle. A little bit of Richard Garage. You'd like to get some reps for Grable in this game, but I don't know if he's going to be ready to go. But I think this really comes down to Kendrick Green versus Dan Feeney for a roster spot. Couple quick notes at tight end and quarterback. At tight end, I think the top 3 are set. Kincaid, Knox, and Hawes. But last week against the Bears, undrafted free agent Kaleki Letu, he was on the field before Zach Davidson, which makes me think that those two players are competing for a practice squad spot. Now, obviously, there's layers to that. They'd have to clear waivers and want to sign back with the Bills. But I think the Bills are probably sorting that out. Like, which one's going to be our practice squad tight end? And it sort of feels like Letu's the guy with more of a chance to be that. I think what's been lost a bit in Zach Davidson's preseason, because there's been penalty mistakes, there's been drops. He's actually made a decent impact on special teams. That probably helps. But I think Letu's probably a better blocker. So just something to file away and pay attention to, because I think those guys the Bills are trying to figure out which one they'd want most back on the practice squad. And then I am curious to see how the Bills handle quarterback in this game. We know Josh Allen's not going to go. My mind is made up that Trubisky should be the backup. I'm curious if the Bills agree, and if they do, how they approach it. If you think that Trubisky is your QB2, do you play him and get reps for your backup, or are you more concerned about exposing him and you're just trying to get through a game? So it's, hey, Mike White, you get a half. Shane Buechele, you get a half. Mitch Trubisky, let's start getting ready for Baltimore. So I could see both sides. As a QB2, he's not going to get a ton of reps. Maybe you want to get Mitch Trubisky those reps. So I'm curious to see how the Bills play this out. I can be convinced of either approach. So a lot to pay attention to, a lot on the line. Sean McDermott came out and said evaluation was the priority for Saturday night. And I think those evaluations will be focused in on what I just outlined for you. Got a lot to do here. We're going live right after the game, Bills squad. So when Bills Bucks is over, we're going live here on the Locked On Bills YouTube channel. And then I'll give you my post-game show that's just me. And the way that I plan on attacking that is through the lens of a final 53-man roster projection. So I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to do Bills squad. Then I'm going to finalize my 53-man roster projection and do a podcast that gives you my final projection through the lens of, kind of talking through some of the stuff from the game as well and what maybe influenced some of the choices that I made, because the cuts are going to come quick. I think it's Tuesday at 4:00 they're due. So anytime between when that game's over and Tuesday at 4, I think you'll start to see some movement. And I gotta get my last projection out there. So that'll be part of our content late Saturday night into Sunday morning. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.